Good day, folks. Welcome back to our Working Together series, live Q&A with Rabbi Karmi Ingber and the Netiv Zoom room. And I have to apologize. I dozed off, and so I'm a couple minutes late. So we're going to just jump right in while it's in
Say, look at these
progress.
idiots.
So
He
let's
said this
just
happened to this person
make
because
it
of that. How
happen.
do
Here
I
we
don't
go,
know. You
folks.
can't say that to anybody. You're supposed to say to yourself, if something happens in your life that is problematic, you should ask yourself, why is this happening? Is God not involved in my life? If you think God's not involved in your life, then I don't know. Then you're cut off from reality. And that's the world that we live in. We live in a world where God wants us to find him and the hidden miracles and the hidden responses of our lives. So the fact that they leave us out of the news, because it's obvious, of course. We've already established that a homosexual relationship is fine. Well, doesn't everyone know that? Doesn't everybody who is a civilized person know that already? Well, no, we don't. In the 7 Noachide laws, that is what's relations. That's a forbidden thing. Now, I'm not mean, and I understand there's different reasons why people go through these things, and I've dealt with people. It's a very difficult thing. There's different reasons why it could happen. There are people that, for very, very deep spiritual reasons, may have a propensity to something else, and they have a challenge they have to overcome. But they have to overcome it. And sometimes it's socialization. And there's no question that I told you last time, if your kids are watching TV, they're brainwashing your kids. They are trying to brainwash your kids. There's no question about it. And there's another deep level that happens sometimes when people don't know boundaries and they have unbridled things they do. They start desiring things that maybe not even natural. So there's different reasons why these things happen. But when a person doesn't even have the ability to question and say, am I living my life in the right way? How does God want me to live my life? Then we've cut ourselves off, because the things we think we know, and we build all of our reality on these crazy ideas the world is taking as a given, are not even true. And people are cut off because they can't rethink things. This is the challenge and the beauty of the world. The challenge is God is concealed now, but he is involved in every single moment of every single day in every single way possible. There's nothing outside of God's knowledge. There's nothing outside of God's involvement. That's all silliness of people who don't understand, who think God is, a person up all crazy, stupid ideas that I'm going to repeat because they're idiotic, but because they don't understand. But if we understand God is perfect in every way of perfection, we can't fathom him in any way. He's involved and directing the show and giving us the free will to look beyond the curtain and to see his involvement. And ladies and gentlemen, if you see that, you're alive. And it's an important thing to practice. Get up in the morning, look at your hands, say, wow, I can move my hands. What a miracle. Open your eyes, see, and say, oh my gosh, what a miracle. I mean, it's incredible. I remember when I was a kid, one time we did this. We actually sat around the room. I was 18 with my friends, and we blindfolded ourselves for like an hour. We were crazy, we were stupid college kids, whatever, but there was an idea to it. We took off our blindfolds. We're like, wow, this is incredible having sight, but it's taken for granted. The miracles of seeing God in our lives require sensitivity. And that's the transition now. Moshe says to Yeshua, you've seen these miracles. And you've seen, as it says, who is a nation like you that's heard God speaking? It's never happened before. It's never going to happen again. This was the calling card. And now our job is to look in life and to constantly see God in our lives, and not to do like the foolish people do, who just cut him out and say, oh, this is not something, and I know what's right. That's not our direction. And we should be able to see all the miracles and involvement that happen 24/7 in every facet of our existence. That's my thought, and let's open it up to some questions.
Okay, who would like to be the first to have questions or comments on this subject or anything else?
Right, there were two main subjects. Yeah, we go let Larry, please.
Yeah.
My only question is the concealment of God is at times feel very frustrating, simply because you pray and pray and pray and you don't see the results, or things are happening. You're just kind of wondering, like, why? Like, can I just see God? Can He just come and just fix this right now? Especially when we see a lot of unfortunate things that are happening. Some of the things are happening in Israel, when the Palestinians right out on the street start stabbing, the Jews and hitting them in the head. And when I see these things, it really offends me. It makes me feel very sad. I feel hopeless, and I feel helpless. And I feel like, why isn't this just ending? Why can't it just stop right now? Like, how much more the people have to suffer? Not just for Jewish people, but other people too. A lot of innocent people are suffering in the hands of very cruel people. So for me, that concealment gets a little bit frustrating at times, but I do understand.
Laura, you're saying beautifully. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. That's why I'm talking about it, because we have to know how to understand it. So let me broaden the topic a little to understand. This is very crucial to understand. We're in the year 5,781 right now. We're moving closer to the end of the 6,000 years. So now that means that there's a 6,000 year time frame that God has put a maximum time in the world as it's going to go in this way. We're talking just a little bit over 200 years possible. That does not even refer to the times of Mashiach, Messiah, which is minimum 40 years. It could be 100 years. So we're really at the tail end of history as we know it, meaning the world's going to move into a new level of consciousness. Now, that whole process is a very intricate process. When people learn the deeper ideas, especially in the Kabbalah, learn mysticism, they'll understand. Kabbalah is better word, mysticism, not really the word. Kabbalah means to receive. It's God's transmission that He gave us. You start to learn the very specifics of what is happening. And the world moves towards a perfection. And that's what I said before. God conceals Himself. And there's a process that the concealment is removed. And that's true for the global world and for individuals. That means, Lara, you have your special things, your special mission, your special challenges that are part of revealing God in this world. And everybody does. Now, some people will abuse it and they'll get there the hard way. Some people will embrace it and get there in a better way. But the whole world is moving to that. So sometimes it happens, we act really righteous. Okay. And that is one system. Sometimes we don't act as righteously, and there's negative consequences that happen in the world. There's the reasons are so multifold. And this is what, by the way, this is what Moses asked God. Moshe said to God, explain to me why righteous people suffer and evil people succeed. That's what we talked about last week. That was what he was asking. He said, show me your face means show me. The Hebrew word for face also is the direction we're going. Poneh. I can't, and God says, you can't see when I'm going there. You could see it from the back. Retroactively, you may understand. But when you're going through it, you can't really get it. So we have to be strong here and understand, this is the crucial part, that it is all moving towards our ultimate good. The people who are the righteous people, when they suffer, God forbid, they take it with a very different way, because they understand that it's for a purpose. It's not arbitrary. You could be teaching, and I don't know, every individual here is their mission and their job in life, but you could be teaching, many people along the way with how you act and the opportunities that you have upon having a challenge. Person could go through a difficulty and they respond in a certain way, and that thing is going to last forever and help the world in the mission that God has to bring the world to its completion. This is so important, because if you don't understand this, you don't understand what the world's going. The world is going to a purpose, but the purpose has to be brought out through people. Because if God could have made the world that way, now Lara says, wait a minute, Rabbi, it's very difficult. So Lara would ask a question. If I said to you, I'll give you a job and I'll pay you, I don't know, $100. So you'd say, okay, no. Now let's see, I'll give you a job, I'll pay you $1 billion. So you would expect there's a lot higher stakes going on here, right? Because, wait a minute, okay. So when you look at 80 years of life, 90 years, maybe 120 years of life, in the grand scheme, that's a blip. We don't think that way. Because we don't think past, I can't. That's, and I always tell people the analogy to think about is every human being was in their mother's womb. Or maybe I have to call it a birthing person. Am I allowed to say mothers here, Rob? Yeah. So every person's in their mother's womb.
Keep it real, Rabbi. Just keep it real. Okay. Birthing person.
So now in the mother's womb, you cannot imagine it was anything past it, because that was your reality. That's our lives right now. So I agree, it's hard. There are challenges. There are challenges where people can't see. And those times you gotta pray very hard, and you have to strengthen what's called emunah, which is not, again, it's not faith, because it's a different, but emunah is the understanding, the trust that God is moving the world and your own existence to your ultimate perfection. Sometimes as a parent, we got to give our kids medicine and they scream and yell and it's terrible and it's awful. But we as parents know that the reason we're making them suffer with whatever it is for their good. You got to do an operation on a child, God forbid, you feel terrible because the kid's in pain and then the doctor's cutting and it's terrible. But you as the parent know it's for good. That's the same way we have to see the world, because that is the purpose. Everything in the world is a very deep thing that's revealing, and what it's going to reveal in the end, and guys, this is the crucial part. What it's going to reveal in the end is going to be revealing clearly that God is one, and He created the world, and He's directing the world, and He is the only power and only source of everything. And when you see that, you're like, oh, wow. And your whole world changes. Everything changes. The whole universe changes because now you're connected. So and that's worth more than billions, because that's the experience that we've all had sometimes, a flicker of feeling very great in life. When you're under a starry night, it's beautiful and you feel amazing. Whatever moment you've had that you felt connected, imagine having that, but times infinite and forever. So we're playing for more than billions, playing for the ultimate stakes, and that's a serious job. So Laura, I understand, I really understand, because everyone goes through that, and sometimes it's harder, and then, but whenever we're going through the great challenges, if you could hold on and you can keep your emunah, your understanding, and connect, then the reward you get for that is greater than what you could ever imagine, because that's the hardest time. the difficulty creates the greatest reward too, because, and again, not because reward, like, oh, you did this, was hard, let's give you this. No, it's that builds you. You all of a sudden now, like, and by the way, most people have had that. I would say most people went through a difficult experience in life. And I tell people to do this all the time. We don't want to go through difficult experiences. We can't understand that. But probably if you're an adult, you've gone through maybe one difficult experience that when you went through, you wished you never had it. And then years later, you said, wow, that really made me better. If you had one of those, you could extrapolate to everything else in your life and learn that principle. And it's much easier.
I think I had a lot of those.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. So,
Yes.
Thanks
for the explanation.
Yeah, and it's amazing. You always have people like that. We but when we're in it, we don't want it. We don't want it. But and so I'm not telling you every time you're going to understand it, but I could guarantee you that the same principle applies. It is always trying to give you good.
Right. Rabbi, you've really said it. The term, we really don't have to understand it. That is the key phrase. We really don't need to understand it if we have attached ourselves and raised our consciousness and connect to God in such a way that it's not material about whether you understand it. It's, do I understand the minutiae and network of God? Like, what is he doing? Now, if I can say, okay, I trust him. He's got a plan. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know why he's doing it. Doesn't make sense, but it's all right.
Right. I don't know if I ever talked in this group about my book, With Heavens Kiss the Earth, and I explain a lot of these concepts. And there's one chapter where I go through many of the things that can explain why bad things happen. But when we're going through them, we don't know which one. So Rod's saying, does it help you to know that it could? Yeah, it helps a little bit. It makes it easier. It makes it a little easier to know that there are potential reasons why, but we're never going to know exactly. That we're not going to know. But like, for example, if something happens and you could say, oh, could be this, could be that, could be this, and you have many, many possible reasons, it at least gives you the mental calmness to understand something. And that's what, did God answer Moshe or not? And that's a discussion. Did he answer him or not? So the deeper meaning is that he did get an understanding of the way the world works and why bad people sometimes succeed and good people sometimes suffer. But the whole picture, that we only get at the end. So we got to take the lessons that we get and extrapolate them. That's why I said, if you remember one time where a bad thing came out to be good for you in the end, take that principle and apply it. We have Martha.
An answer to her why she should not become discouraged. I take a lot of comfort in Psalm 76. It's all talking about things that are going to happen at the end and how the evil forces are going to be defeated. But it talks about, at your rebuke, O God of Jacob, that they were stunned. You are awesome. Who can stand before you when you are wrathful? And then it says, from heaven you make judgment heard. The earth feared and subsided. When God arose to pass judgment to save all the earth's humble. And then this next verse is how I deal with it. For the rage of man will acknowledge you. You will restrain the remnant of anger. It means that if we go to God, and at least this is what I think it means, if we go to God and say, it's enough, please block your anger. I mean, it's kind of like when we ask for him to restrain his anger like Abraham did. He was going to do it. Abraham, when he was going to sacrifice Isaac, he restrained not his anger. He restrained what
Martha, you're saying
should have done, but he did it so that he could. I'm getting it mixed up.
I hear what
Anyway,
you're saying.
I take a lot of it. It takes a lot to see what's going on, and when I cry and I sigh, I remember this verse.
Right. I hear what you're saying, and the idea, and that in the end everything is going to be in its place. Now, I do want to explain this a little bit, something that Martha brought up, because whenever the Torah talks about God's anger and all these things, so we have to understand that's called an anthropomorphism, meaning that God does not have anger, because that's a human response. You can't make God respond in any way. But we experience it as that. So, but like it's important to understand, because especially when you read it a lot of times in English, we get the wrong ideas, and we know many religions that have made their God into people, but God doesn't have. It's not he doesn't have emotions and doesn't like get angry. That's not what it is. God chooses to deal with the world in various ways. So what's called kas in Hebrew means it's a response that God will bring upon the world, but it's never like a person could get angry and do things because they're angry. That's not what's happening here. God's choosing to deal with the world in the way that we experience maybe as anger, but it's all for the good. Why? Because why did God create the world? He created the world. You know why? Because it says he wanted to give good. It is the way of the good to give good. Now, we don't understand God, but we can understand that God is perfect in every way, and therefore it is the way of the good to give good. So he created a world. He wanted to give good to his creations. Now, we have a problem, because to give that good, he had to give us free will, and people could be very, very bad. And so there is different dynamics. What happens to those people? Because they're choosing to be bad. And God is trying, as the verses say in many, many places, God does not want the death of the dying ones. He wants them to return to Hashem and live. So God is pushing everyone, giving people signs, get it together. But I give you free will. I want you to do it. God could do it for us. You can just create us in a perfect world, and it's great, it's fun, great, wonderful. But then we didn't do anything. And as I always tell you many times, that's the one of many religions have many fallacies they take from Jewish ideas, and they change them where it's not recognizable. So I told you before, this idea of grace. I'm not an expert in Christian theology, but the idea that, well, okay, you can't do it, so it doesn't work like that. Because once I take away the ability for you to do it, I have made you a non-person. The purpose of the world is that you should be a person, and God will help us, and it'll assist us and push us and cajole us, and sometimes even bring difficulties to fix us up. But the point is that he wants you to do it. He wants you to come to a place of understanding. He doesn't want to put it on you. He doesn't want to say, like the 2-year-old kid who washes the dishes and you just pray the kid's not going to break a dish. He wants you to actually help to do the things that you can do, because then you will in the end feel like I have done something and I can enjoy the experience of what I built. That's the way the world is. So it's very important to understand. So whenever we talk about, in any place you read in Psalms or any place else, don't ever misunderstand, like some people do, that God he's angry and he's jealous. Those things are not, those are both mistranslations and misunderstandings. God is not bound by any emotion of that sense. He created a world, and when we talk about he's angry, or that's all how we experience, how he manifests to us, how we experience it. And therefore you have to understand, it's since the purpose was all to give good, that's the same purpose when what appears to us to be anger is for the purpose of our benefit. Now, there are some unfortunate people, not a lot, but some unfortunate, that are so thoroughly evil that they just refuse. And that's an unfortunate thing. But God is pushing the world to bring the world to perfection.
Yeah, that's good. Sandy?
Well, along those lines, Rabbi, if there's no anger and jealousy and all of that, what do we do with the idea of love? Is there no love? And where would that fit in?
So good. So again, let's talk about compassion. It's easier to give an example of compassion. I think I've said this before, but it's very important to understand. You walk down the street, you see a guy, asking for money. He's got no legs and he's covered with boils, and he says, "Can you spare $1?" Now, you gotta. You really at that moment, your compassion is stimulated that you have to give him the money, because you're not human if you don't give him something, because your compassion is there. Now, that means that I, as a person, I change. You press a button, I feel compassion. You press a button, I feel anger. But God cannot be changed in any way. So this is very important. When we say God is Balarachami, the master of all compassion, that means that he chooses to build this world under that system. Very important thing to understand, because this is one of the reasons that Christianity and numerous other religions have undone themselves. Because when I tell you, which is true, I say God loves you. That's true. That is true. But when I say that and I think, oh, wait a minute, God loves me, so my brother loves me and my cousin loves me, and therefore God is a person or something like my cousin or my brother. That's the mistake. So when we talk, so the deeper understanding is that we can't understand God. I mean, Christianity built as a religion to understand God. We don't have that. We can't understand God by definition. We can understand how he built the world and chose to build the world. And therefore he built the world because he wanted to give love. He built the world because he wanted compassion. He built the world in a way where he reveals himself to sometimes show anger for the purpose of giving the good. So Sandy, the answer to your question is that it's not that it's an emotion like a person who experiences it and it causes change in them and they have to act this way. Rather, we don't understand God. We understand the system that he created. And the system he created is a system of, yes, chesed, kindness, love. He created a world, as the verse says, Olam chesed yiboneh. He created the world because he wanted to give kindness. That we understand. But is it because that's what he has to do? No, we can't understand God. And therefore, he created a system that we do have some way to understand God as the one who gives kindness, the one who gives compassion. And since the goal was to give kindness, so when he shows anger, which is that he chose to do, is for the purpose of revealing the kindness he wanted to give. Does that make sense? It's a very complicated idea, actually. I know I said it kind of like it was not a complicated idea, but it's actually a very philosophical idea that you could have to see him. Maimonides talks about, and a lot of people talk about. It's a very subtle point. But it's
Rabbi, when you said that those are attributes of man, love, compassion, hate, whatever. All those are attributes of man. It's not a God attribute, but it's a man attribute. we describe them that way because that's the result that we are experiencing. That's why we describe it that way. But God is not a man to have been pulled by his emotions one way or another. Right? God's just not, he's not a man that he should be pulled by emotions.
Right, but I'm adding one other piece, and this is what Sandy's asking me. But God did choose to reveal to us in the world his kindness,
right,
his anger, but they're not intrinsic in the sense that, like for me, I got no choice. When you press the compassion button, I get compassion. Press the anger button, I get angry. That's not the way it works here. The way it works is that we don't understand God, and he chose to create a world where there's a system, and we have emotions that do parallel to the way that God reveals himself in the world.
Right.
So could we say God has only one attribute, and that is good, and sometimes that good has to be displayed through what we perceive as anger, and sometimes it has to be perceived through what we see as compassion, but there's really only one?
So again, let me, it's a very tough philosophical point, but I don't want to give this one up because I see it when people do it, it becomes a slippery slope. We don't understand God. I can't tell you about God in his essence and anything. I can't say we don't understand anything. You can't understand God. You are a finite being. You cannot understand God. That is a premise, and that is a mistake of other religions to think that they understand God, because then they have to make God less because they think they understand him. I don't understand. I know God revealed certain traits that is the way he runs. The purpose of revealing, creating the world as is God's kindness, his chesed, his love to give to people. That part is true. And therefore, everything that comes out when there's a negative response, it's not for the sake of the negative. Christianity actually had to go so far because they couldn't read the Bible, they couldn't read the Torah. So that's all wrong. And notice that, Sandy, so that part I agree with you, yes. The verse says, Olam chesed yibana, God created the world to give good. That is why he created this world. Do I understand? I can't understand his essence. I don't. I say, I know the thing he revealed to me, the first thing that I can reveal, that I can understand, that he shows me, he manifests in this world, is he wants to give good. He wants to give love. He wants to make it for everyone, to create a world so we can experience good. And thereby, since that is considered to be the starting point, everything has to go back to the starting point. That's correct. Everything, in other words, if there is a punishment, it's not for the sake of the punishment. It's for the sake of, now I want to give good. And the person can't get it. Okay, so there's got to be, there are systems. Does that make sense or no? Okay, good. Very deep, but we're
no, that was very good. I thought that was very insightful for Sandy to sort of draw it down to God has one attribute, and that is good, and everything else that we experience as human beings is just an outcrop of that goodness. So we might perceive it as being,
but I still don't want to call it. It's when I say attribute, means that is when God reveals himself. That's how he starts the process.
Right.
I don't want to say that I understand God, and then that's
correct. Correct.
I fall into the pit that everyone else does. That I'm starting to say, oh, wait a minute. So if you feel love, then if I do this, I'll feel that, and then make God. Well, we can't understand God anyway. So, by the way, and understand this, and I need to clarify this because people don't. We talked a little while about the sin of the golden calf. People are, what are these people? What they did? No, these are very deep people. They didn't think the golden calf was God.
Correct.
But what happened, the problem is that it's a very deep human desire to have some understanding that we can relate to. And that was the problem. The problem was that when they couldn't understand, they wanted to grab onto something. They didn't think they were trying to make a symbol to make themselves think. But the idea is that's why any image You can't make an image, an idol. An idol, you read the Torah and you see those things about against idols. And you don't understand, like why so many about idols? Because it's all an effort to contain and say, I understand God. Hey, look, I carry God around my neck. I mean, come on, guys, it's crazy. It's absurd. I don't mean to make fun of people. It's just there's a problem. We're not understanding that. Then you're making God you. And then once we make God human and us, then we're stuck, because then you can't, it's not God anymore. Then we go.
It's funny because
not when we're dealing with things. And as far as idea, you see, the philosophers talked about what's called the first cause. And the thing is that when you talk about a being that's strong, that's not God, because a stronger one and a stronger one and a stronger one. That's not God. Is where everything ends. And we can't understand. It's beyond. He's perfect in every way of perfection. And we cannot understand. We can't even understand his kindness, because how kind is God? Very, 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 very. I mean, you can't even say it. You can't say it. You don't understand.
To say it would reduce him down.
You can't say it because he's infinite in every way. So what I can say, and this is what Sandy was saying, this part I do agree to, is that, again, we have a verse. The verse says that God created the world. Created the world to give kindness. The purpose of the world, and they created. Why? I don't know. But the way of the good is to give good. And therefore, everything that comes out is for that purpose. And that I need you to understand, because that's what the false people say. They're like, God got angry. No. God wants to give good. He gives you free will so you can earn the good. And that way you can really get pleasure and really experience it. If you don't use it, you might need to get medicine because you made yourself sick.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If your kid you want your kid to grow up and be a functional child. And today it's harder and harder. You want them to eventually be able to move out of the house and stop living in your basement. That's a good goal. I understand it's difficult today, especially, the country's going crazy and inflation and everything else. But sometimes the kid is going in a way that's not good. And therefore you act to the child angry. You say, you can't have the car. But you're acting that way because you want to give the kid the good. That was the point. So you manifest this trait because your goal is for his ultimate success. That's the point.
It's good. Tar, you have your hand raised up.
I assume this is why they say commandments is don't make any graven images of God, because there is nothing we can make that could resemble God. There's absolutely nothing we can build with our hands. And as soon as we do, we've built an idol.
Right. Exactly.
Whether it be a cross or a Buddha or a cow or whatever. As soon as we put something in form, we have created an idol, because there's absolutely no way of replicating anything that resembles God. I assume, is that true?
That is true. That is true. And that is because every human being, people do want to understand what is incomprehensible. It's normal. I mean, in the sense
But don't you think that would go along with people's perception?
What?
Don't you think people's perception of God can also borderline on idolatrous? Like they're trying to perceive, I want to understand this, and this is how God is, and that's how God is. It's like,
that's exactly
yeah.
You go hand in hand. Right. In other words, the action of making an idol is because the person thinks they want to understand God. They think they can. They define it. So it starts in the head, like everything. You ever had an experience with I don't know, your spouse or any other friend? Something's bothering you. You're thinking about it's bothering you in your head, but you say, I'm not going to say it. And you hold off a day or two or a week, and then something happens and the button gets pressed and wow, it comes out. Well, how'd that work? Because everything starts in your head. That's why your head is on top of your body. It's not an accident. This is the control booth. Starts in here, it moves from here into here, it moves into the action. So the problem in the mind is that people have a misunderstanding and they want to try to define God, and that leads them to then making images.
Right.
Images is like the second step. It shows already, and that's what I'm saying to you. And this problem is so great that is you could see it. And that's why I'm trying to kind of help us all, because I do also talk in the terms the Torah talks in, which the Torah talks in anthropomorphic language. As God loves you, so God is all compassionate. So people, and that's to have us have some understanding, because we have to function.
Right.
Then when you start to say, "Oh, I understand how God works," no, wait a minute.
Or how about even going, I feel far from God, or I feel close to God, or God seems so far away. It's like there's no that doesn't exist.
That's much better, because you're
right.
How you're understanding, right?
Right, but at the same time, He's not those things, even though we might feel that.
That's right. That's right. And
Rabbi, I have a question on YouTube.
Please.
From my friend Cookie Monster. She asks, if He made us in His likeness, is it possible to learn to know yourself and thereby increase understanding of Hashem?
Yes.
That's interesting. That's good.
It's a very very deep point. And I could actually spend the next 20 hours giving you the more Kabbalistic understandings of these things, because this is the deepest of the deepest. Is very, very, very important. We are built in a certain way, and the way we're built is to be a ladder to be able to understand God. Now, again, not in His essence, but understand what He's revealed to us. You can't go past a certain point. If you say, what happened before? You ask certain questions that are outside the world. You can't, because why did God give you 10 fingers and not 11? I don't know. Why did God create a system that you think in terms of 10? He created this and that. So you can't go certain, but He did create. And not only that, the point is when a person actually learns biology and understands the way their body is built, they understand the spiritual worlds that God built. So yes, you understand yourself, you understand how you're built, and you understand how you have a body and a soul that connects to the body, and how it does that, and how the whole system is made, that if you start looking inside and understanding yourself. Let's give some practical examples. So first of all, let's say a person has anger, okay? And you can't control your anger. So you start to see that this is what's happening. There are negative things that are happening. So I'm not being godlike at this point, and I'm not letting myself be a vehicle that my soul is really connecting, because I'm out of control. I can understand this on a physical level, on a traits level, on every level. The human being is built, again, not in the image of God as to understand physically. God, that's not what it means. But God created us in the structure that by understanding our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, we will get to a deeper understanding of the world that He created in every sense. And that's how He revealed Himself. Very good question.
That was a very insightful question. We're going to have to wrap it up, Rabbi. This hour just has flown past.
Yeah.
I really appreciate. Yes, Sandy has something.
One more, please.
Sure.
When you were talking at the beginning about Adam and what we looked at as punishment, when he was told you will have to work and she'll have to bear children in pain, we look at those as punishments. And you reminded me of a lecture I heard that God only said, if you eat from this tree, you will die. That was the only thing he said. And the idea the rabbi presented was then later when they did eat and he's confronting them with it, and he says, now you're going to have to work and now you're going to have pain in childbearing. And they could have said, whoa, wait a minute. That was never part of the deal. You never said that before. So made me think, consequences and punishment are not the same thing. Maybe what happened with having to work for a living and pain in childbearing and all that was consequences, not punishment. But I never thought of it before that the only thing he said, and I don't know that even maybe that you will die would be considered a punishment and that it would be a consequence.
So I hear, let me try to answer this, take 2 minutes and answer this. I want to, and I don't want this to be misunderstood, but consequences and reward and punishment are essentially the same thing. And let me explain what I mean by that. The term reward and punishment we like to use because it's one of the fundamental beliefs. You know, if a person doesn't believe in God and doesn't believe God gave it to her and has been reward and punishment, they're completely out of the most basic fundamental beliefs of reality. But the term reward and punishment in our terms has a misconception because, again, and this is the problem that was asked before, the question that Dan brought. We sometimes misunderstand ourselves. So if my kid gets me angry and I yell and I punish them, are there times where I'm not punishing him in the appropriate way because I'm angry? Yeah, a lot of times. You got angry, you lost your cool, and that doesn't happen. That's no such thing for God. It's not that you got angry and then he gave you more than you're supposed to have. That's not what it is. So therefore, when we say reward and punishment, we're in a world that the reward and punishment might not be commiserate with the act. There's no such thing in God's world. God created the world that he doesn't give you more punishment than you're supposed to get, which means that it's a consequence. Why is it a consequence? Because he wants you to get good. So if you go and you like, I don't know, let's say for example, you keep playing with your ear and you're not able to hear properly because you keep doing this. Now you have problems with you can't hear God speaking to you. So he has to do something to open your ears up. So that becomes painful. That you can call a punishment, but it's a consequence. When you do a negative thing, the negative consequence that's created is what we'll call a punishment. It's the same thing. And this is very important because people in the world today, they like saying the word karma. They don't like saying the word reward and punishment. That's too old-fashioned, but they don't understand that. And I'm going to show you the flaws of both the idea of karma and the idea of reward and punishment and what the Torah means. The thing with karma that they talk about is that it is impersonal. There's no way to happen. You did this, that has to happen. Now, the other side, reward and punishment, but they don't like other people don't like about that is it's like, oh, you're a bad boy, I'm angry, I'm going to do this. Neither one of those things is true. What is true is that everything you do positive or negative will create a response that will be appropriate to what you did with the goal of getting you to where you have to be, getting you towards perfection. So if you did a good thing, then you're bringing good down into the world. You might get it now, you might get it later, but you created a positive thing. You did a negative thing, you created a negative response. And a negative response is harming and it's hurtful and that's what's called the punishment. But God metes it out in the exact way that he chooses to for the best interest of the people. So for example, if we did something wrong, right? Pretend you're God for a minute and you get angry and somebody, oh, listen to me. And the person listens, what do? You punish them right away, you destroy them. But God doesn't do that. He'll give a little problem here, a little problem there. If you stub your toe, don't get angry. Say, hey, wait a minute. Maybe this is a payoff for the time I wasn't so nice to somebody else. So I'm getting little mortgage payments instead of getting the whole thing in one shot. So God is, everything you do creates a consequence. And God gives it in the right measure, the right time, the right way, in this world and the afterworld, all the different possibilities. That's what's happening. So the karma people, they got a problem because it happens. It's a cosmic thing and there's no control over it. And then the reward and punishment people, it sounds terrible because it's just like angry and God got angry. But everything is a consequence. Adam was told he would die, and that was the ultimate punishment. The ultimate punishment was life means if you have an electric appliance and you plug it into the socket, it's going to go forever. When you unplug it and you put a battery in, the battery lasts a couple of years and then it's done. So when Adam was connected to God, he was living forever. The ultimate punishment was the consequence. The consequence was, he said, I don't see God. I want to be like God. You want to be like God? You just disconnect yourself from God. Because if you say that I'm my own God, okay, you're going to see, not because I'm trying to hurt you, but you're going to see that that's not life. You're not connected anymore. So death was the punishment or the consequence to the action. The things that came out afterwards were also part of that. Those were the details of the problem of living in a life of life and death. Now you're not connected to God. You're not plugged in. You got to work for your living. You have to see me in the hidden part right now, because before you were connected. So they're all the consequences, they're all the reward and punishment, because they all come from the essential part of what God said, that connecting to me is life, disconnecting is death. Death therefore requires all these other things in this new reality that you're in now, that your battery pack works for 100, 120 years, 90 years, whatever works for it works, but you've disconnected. And these are the problems of the disconnection. So the answer to the question is that, and I want you to understand, this is a summary of the whole class today. We got to very deep philosophical things. We never know where it's going to go, so that's good. But this is the summary of the whole class, to understand this. And Larry, I hope this is going to help from what you said originally. God created the world, as the verse says, Olam Chesed Yibane, created the world to give us good. We can't understand God, but we know that's why he built the world. We don't understand his essence. We understand that that's what his will was, to create a world to give good. And that's the goal. And therefore, he gave us free will to choose. And if we choose good, we create positive consequences. We choose negative, we create negative consequences. The negative consequences are also to help us in the end. Just like you got to sometimes punish your kid. That's the goal. So he's even the guys, ones he has to punish, or negative consequences. It's all for the ultimate good. And Lara, not even meaning that every time a person has a negative thing that happens means they're terrible. It doesn't mean that. It means that they could have a special mission. They have a challenge now, and they're the ones who, with the challenge, they come up smiling, and somebody says, "Wow, look at this person." There was a rabbi in Jerusalem, and I think I told you, he was an old man. He used to walk down the street, and he always mumbled, and people don't know what he was mumbling. And one day, somebody went by, and they put their ear to what he was saying. And he was taking every step. He was in tremendous pain. He was very old, and every step he was saying a verse. Praise God, because his goodness is forever. Now, I'm not telling you that his pain was because of that. I don't know. But I could tell you one thing, that when the world saw that story, millions of people changed. They said, I'm complaining about this, I'm complaining about that. And this person is seeing even the difficulties. So you might go through challenges, part of your unique mission to show God in the world. I don't know exactly. Those are very, very deep questions, what your mission is and what you have to do. But what I'm saying to you is all the good things that happen and all the negative things, they're all eventually to get us to the right place, but with our free will, because we are doing certain things. There are consequences that are created. It's never to knock us out, and it's always for the purpose, as we said in the beginning, because he wanted to give us good.
Tar?
So Pincus, what Pincus did was not anger and was not punishment. It was the result that our bodies are going to die if we continue to engage in such illicit acts.
Well, what Pinchas did, and that's why the verse goes and it's very good. It's what you're saying, Targum. The verse goes and says, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, son of Aaron a Cohen. And the reason why he does that is because the Kohanim were known as kindness. And people shouldn't think that he did it out of anger. He didn't do it out of anger. He did it because he said there was a plague and I got to save the people because God does not approve of this action. And therefore I have to go and do this. But it's a very tricky business because, you know, a zealot, a guy who's a zealot, it's easy to be a fake zealot. You know, a lot of people, you know, very angry about this, but deep down because they have these things. How many people have you heard these stories about these preachers who are screaming this and screaming that, and then they're doing all these crazy things? So you understand that when the person is screaming about it, they're not really, it's not, they got their own demons they're dealing with. So when Pinchas goes and he says, this is a very immoral act, it's breaking the Jews from God, and that's why there's a plague. I need to stop it. Why am I stopping it? Is it because I'm an angry guy and this is my chance? You know, it's like, you know, you could say, you know, you want to, you know, the owner of the house wants to get rid of the mice, and so does the cat. But the cat wants the mice there so he can eat it. The owner of the house, rather they didn't come. The cat likes the mice so he can eat them. So Pinchas, he didn't do it because he's an angry guy. He said, no, he did it because he's the son of Aaron. He wants good for the people, knows this act is wrong, knows this act is causing a break, and that's why he did it. Then that's a true positive zealot, not someone who's doing it for their own because they're angry people. He's doing it because he's a loving person, and this is the action that needs to be done when wrong is being done. And as I keep telling you guys all the time, I'm kind of counting on you for America and for Australia and all the other places that you know, that people live, that God gave to the nations.
Right.
So an amazing thing. I never realized. I saw an amazing thing this week on the point. I'll end this point, but it's really, I was fascinated. I never saw this before. Abraham, everyone knows, was kindness. So I saw one place that Abraham was also a zealot. You know when he was a zealot? When he went out to fight the war against the four kings.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why I was zealot, because a zealot does something that it doesn't make sense what you're doing, but you're bothered by this so much that you just got to do something. What did he hate so much? Abraham loved people. This was the first war in history. People had their boundaries. This was your country. This was your country. God created 70 nations. Everyone get out of place. This was the first war. And Abraham was beside himself. How could people come and kill other people? And he stood up because it was so wrong. He was a zealot because he loved people, and he saw these people doing things to harm people. He couldn't stand it. And therefore, when the world is saying crazy things and doing crazy things, we can't go and yell and scream because we're angry people. We have to yell and scream because we're loving people and good people. And we need to stand up for what is right and what is true. That's the way God made it, and that's the job.
That's a great summation of the class today. Awesome class. Next class tomorrow night with Rabbi Zvi Avener. He's teaching on the book, in the book of Genesis, and it's been a very interesting journey with him. So I hope you guys will join us then. And until then, also don't forget on the 28th of this month, which is next Thursday, Rabbi Jeremy Gimple will be coming in from Israel to be speaking about the land of Israel, a project there in the Gush. Let's see, help me here. Yeah, thank you. And it's going to be a great time. It's going to be at the Homewood Suites Hotel. If you want more information, go to our Facebook page and look Netiv online Facebook and get the information that you need, or email me at netivcenter@gmail.com and we'll send you all the information. It's going to be a great time of fellowship with Noahides from all over the place. I think Tar and Nancy are coming down from Kansas, and a number of individuals from a larger region is going to be here. So it's going to be awesome. And also, don't forget, Dan has a conference coming up, and we'll plug it a little bit more in November.
That's
And
right.
that's
Yeah,
going to be very
looking
exciting.
forward to that. Yeah.
Dan, where is that? Where's that conference?
The conference is here in my city of Penticton, British Columbia, Canada, at the Penticton Trade and Convention Center. And I have Rabbi Goldberg coming from Jerusalem, and the Skobaks are going to be there. Shashi Skobak, she has been teaching meditation at Jewish synagogues for a long time, and she's doing a modified class for Noahides. Going to teach some meditation, and Rabbi Michael Skobak is going to headline for 2 nights, November 21st and 22nd. That's the 27th of Chesvan, and yeah, we're looking forward to that. We're hoping more people register. It's available online on the Noahide World Center YouTube page. You can find the links from the promo, and also on our Facebook page. And there's a sign up link. And yeah, there's a little cost involved, but we're within reach of, like I said, we're about 5-hour drive from Seattle, 8-hour drive from Portland, about 11 hours from Montana, and only about 13-hour drive if somebody wanted to come from Sacramento, California. But I've got people that have already registered from north of Anchorage, Alaska, and
Awesome.
all the way from as far east in Canada as Winnipeg, Manitoba. Yeah, so it's exciting.
All right.
We live in exciting times, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
And I
Dan, go ahead.
apologize, Rabbi, for being late. I set my alarm for an hour earlier, and I woke up and I nodded for a second, and boom. And thank you for calling me back. It got me up. I did get to record north of an hour here. I probably missed the first several minutes, but we had an okay turnout.
Give him the parts he missed.
Good. And also, you needed the rest, Dan. So we really appreciate the effort that you put in on this. It
Thanks
means
so
a
much,
lot.
Dan, Rod. All the best, guys.
Thank you now.
All
Shalom,
right.
shalom.
Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody. Signing out of working together for today. And once again, I apologize for missing the very beginning. And it's never easy, but it's definitely worth the effort, folks. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye for now.
Shalom.
Record.